Some of you might remember a few weeks ago we mentioned the ministry we do, or we're a part of, called SHIP, that the house that we use tragically burned down. And I just want to give you a little update. We have SHIP guests that are here on our campus right now. We're helping kind of bridge that gap right now. If you're available to chaperone or want to help bring a meal, we would love for you. After the service, we're going to do the baptisms. And after that, where our Connect table is, you can find Cheryl there. She can tell you a little bit more. We kind of stepped in kind of quick without kind of really just, we needed to do this. So for 3 weeks, we're going to be doing this. If you can help out, we would love to have you be a part of those things. So check that out afterwards if you have any questions. Today's a big day. It's a fall kickoff. There's so many things that are going on, I think, right now. And I mean, kickoff's probably an appropriate word because 15 minutes ago, the NFL, well, I guess if you're a Rams fan, we don't count Thursday. That was just... It's just like, it felt like a preseason game for us. We got 16 more. We'll go 16-1. But it's a big kickoff day. Literally, hey, go Barons. How about the Barons on top of that right now? This is the year we win the bell. Okay. Edison's just laughing at us right now. Okay. Hey, it's, but really, we have campus baptisms, we have beach baptisms. This is a big day for us to celebrate. And really, it's a big day for you to celebrate because we've all been a part of this. We've been praying for God to work in our midst. You've been serving in all kinds of ways. There are so many different ways in which we've all been a part of this. And this is a day in which we harvest kind of the goodness of God, what he has been doing. But it also is a way which I think we realize, like looking in the crowd, I realize a lot of you are parents of kids. There's a rhythm that has changed in our lives. Summer is over. And I don't know if you're happy about that or not, but summer is over. We're into the fall. And back to school, we launched our school here on campus. Our teachers, everyone's doing a great job in the midst of, all you people that were last week, in the midst of all the heat and all the other stuff that was going on, it was not the easiest week to kind of launch into new things. But we're going, and I think we all feel that sense of new rhythm. And I want to try to set some pace for us a little bit. Each week, I give you what's called a big idea, just kind of a simple statement that will help you track with us a kind of a golden thread in the sermon, in the message, in the text that we're looking at. But I want to give you one for our fall. Today, I want you to think of this as like reading the introduction to a book. Today, I want to kind of set the tone of where we're headed in these next weeks. Here's the big idea for the fall, is that we want to think about this idea about walking with God and walking with others. That we are invited to walk with God. And what you're going to find is that ultimately, if you walk with God, you're going to be invited to walk with others. This walking with God and walking with others, it's a rhythm that we learn to develop of a life that you can have with God. We're going to look at a passage, one of the, I think just a brilliant passage. It's kind of a unique story in the Bible, but it celebrates this idea that you are invited to walk with God. And the songs that we've been singing this morning have already captured that in so many ways. But there's a way in which you'll see as we go through these next weeks that as you learn to walk with God, that God will take you into the lives of other people. And we want to think about how to do this well. One of the things that we're going to do starting next week is we're going to read and study through a book in the Bible, a small little book called Ruth. If you're ever reading through the Bible, it's a great part of reading through the Bible because it's 4 chapters and you feel like, man, I just read a whole book of the Bible. Like it takes you like 5 minutes to read the whole book. How many of you, I'm just curious, just show of hands, how many of you have ever studied the book of Ruth before, right? So it's mostly women, right? It's because they do it in a women's Bible study. But this is an important book for all of us to read and see. And there's a beautiful picture of what we've been seeing even this summer of how God is so invested in kind of the everyday life of his people and how as we walk with him, we walk with others. This is what we're going to be looking at. So I want to set it up with one of the great passages that teaches us about this rhythm. Turn to Hebrews 11 if you have a Bible. The Bible's in front of you, Hebrews chapter 11. And I want you to think about this. This is a chapter in the Bible that people call the Hall of Fame of Faith. It's a chapter in this book to the Hebrews. This book of the Hebrews is written to people who are kind of going through this pressure on their faith, and there's a consideration: should we turn back? Should we press on, or should we turn back? And as the greatness of Jesus is being built up, there comes this moment where they're invited to think about what it looks like to really to see what happens when people choose to live by faith. And they're incredible stories. It's one of if you're a preacher, every 7 years you preach through Hebrews 11. I've been here 14 years. I've preached through it twice, so you got another 7 years or so till we go through it again. But it's incredible because the stories are about these incredible things that happen when we act in faith. You build something like Noah, or you do this great act like Moses and leading the people out, or you're like Abraham and Sarah. You think of this as a family of us venturing out for God. And then tucked in this is this one little story about this one person who doesn't have kind of the big billboard of testimony. It's a man named Enoch. Enoch, we know very little about. Most of what we know about is written in 4 verses in the book of Genesis. You don't have to turn there. I'm going to show it you on the screen. Genesis 5 tells us about this man, Enoch. And let me read it to you just so you can we can set this up. Genesis 5 says this, that when Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. 4 verses, and yet this story is going to get tied into this Hall of Fame of faith. Hebrews 11 is going to tell a little bit about, and you think about this story in Genesis became part of the tapestry of faith for the people of Israel. As they saw this was a person that they knew of. They knew this story, they looked up to this. There was something that gave some inspiration of what it looked like to be a person of faith. And so in Hebrews 11, we're gonna do this. We're gonna look at verse 1 that kind of describes what faith is. And then we wanna look at verses 5 and 6 that are gonna use Enoch, this man Enoch, as an example of faith. So let's think about what it looks like to walk with God. Chapter 11, verse 1 of Hebrews says this, that faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. And this is a very important verse for you to explain your Christianity. It describes what this, because many of you will find sometimes that someone will say to you, you're a person of faith, I'm a person of reason. You're a person who believes things, I'm a person who looks at the facts. Right? You probably have maybe one way or another. I don't know that everyone always means to be insulting when they say that, but it's important that you understand from Hebrews 11, if you understand the nature of what faith is, what you see in this chapter, with this verse here, is that faith is all about confidence and assurance. It's confidence in what we hope for. It's assurance about what we do not see. This is and the people that had this, who understood this is what they were commended for. And he's going to go on and give examples of this. Faith is about confidence. It's about trust. It's about assurance. It's about reliance. We might say biblical faith is God confidence. It's God confidence. It's confidence that then translates into action. Those two words, confidence and assurance, those are important words. Circle them in your Bible, underline them. But understand what it's saying we act on something because we see that it is true, that there's reason for it. Faith is not asking you just to hope and wish that it's all gonna work out. It's saying real faith is built on, you have reason to believe something and so you act on it. The reason why these people acted in faith is because they found God faithful or trustworthy. He was worthy of their trust. Let me give you just a simple illustration. Justin mentioned we're having a work day. We have these three guys, Greg Keenan, John Roberts, Sid Parsley. They've all retired, but at Beachpoint, we don't allow you to retire, you get repurposed. And so these are three guys who are here. And so if something breaks down, what we do is we have a work order and it kind of goes through this a little shuffle system. Sooner or later, it gets to one of these guys and either they do it or they find someone else and they kind of oversee a project. But there's a reason why we trust it to them. Greg, for example, has built hospitals and he's built universities. He is trustworthy. You trust Greg to fix something because Greg has given you reason to believe. Now, one person who's excluded from work days and who will never get these emails is me. Okay, you do not ask me to fix anything for you. The person who would stand at the front of the line for that would be my wife. She'd be the first person to tell you. It was interesting, our volleyball coach, Kim and I are volunteering, helping out, and she asked me, she goes, "Are you handy?" And I'm like, "You should listen to my sermon on Sunday." She's showing me this closet and she wants to hang these nets. And I'm like, yeah, okay, 220, 221, whatever it takes. We can kind of figure this out and kind of looking at it. I'm like, I gotta call Greg Keenan. I don't know how it's gonna get done, but I don't know how to I don't know how to put something into concrete. I have no idea how this is gonna work. When we were first married, probably married 2 months, 3 months, lived in a little 1-bedroom apartment in Huntington, just Kim, myself, and a colony of roaches. That was it in our home. And I came home for one day from work. We had a leaky kitchen faucet, and I came home wanting to prove to my wife what a valiant man that she had married. And so I don't know why in my head, we didn't have YouTube. I couldn't go to YouTube on how to fix a leaky faucet like you cool millennials. I didn't have that. I don't know why. Don't mock me, but somehow I had heard that if you had a leaky faucet, there was a washer that needed to be changed. And so I start undoing the thing, this thingy. I'm doing this with some kind of tool, I don't know what, probably scissors. And about 5 turns in, I forgot to do something very important. Yes, turn the water off. And it was just a geyser up all the way to it hit the roof. The spigot, boom, hit the roof. And there's water straight up to the top. And I'm holding it down as if this is gonna stop it. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. And I start screaming, help, help. And then my wife comes in and instead of seeing me with my Superman thing, she just looks at me just soaked in water going like this. And she just looks and does, she just starts laughing at me. I'm like, this is not funny. I'm reaching under, trying to turn the water off, and it's calcified or something. I cannot turn it. Or maybe I'm turning it the wrong way. I don't know what, but I can't stop it. I'm like, you have to get help. We're gonna drown. Something's gonna happen. And so she walks out, and of course, right in that moment, this big guy, young guy, walks by. Are you guys okay? I heard screaming. And he walks in our thing. He sees me holding the water. He just reaches in. I think he flexed and winked at my wife, and he just cranked it off. And I was just so humiliated. And that's been a lesson for me ever since. You don't put confidence in me for this. All right? So notice what the Bible's saying. The Bible's saying to you, why do we have faith? Why do we have trust? We have the faith and trust in these things because we have reason to. Think about Easter. In 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul says this, that we have reason to believe. We have seen Jesus. He talks about all the eyewitness accounts, and he says to the audience that just for them to understand, that if Jesus has not been raised from the dead, then our faith is useless. It doesn't work, it's not real. The Bible gives you permission to understand there has to be substance to this. So we see that this idea that faith is this God confidence. So how does this faith then play itself out? Look at verses 5 and 6. Enoch is an example of a person who grew in faith. It says this, by faith, Enoch was taken from this life. This is the story we know from Genesis we just read. So that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it's impossible to please God because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Wonderful ideas. Let me just unpack these things really quickly before we head out to baptisms. One, walking with God lets him set the pace for our life. Why is it important? What do we see from Enoch? We see that if we learn to walk with God as he did, that God sets the pace for our life. Now, Genesis said it this way. He's 65, he has his son, then he lived another 300 years. There's this idea of 365 years, this idea of completeness, right? A whole year, that's kind of an important number. But the idea he lived this complete life, then God took him. But there's like this idea that twice in that passage, what it said that he was commended for is that he walked faithfully with God, Genesis 5:24. And it's repeated again, that Enoch walked faithfully with God. Now it's interesting, in all the stories in Hebrews 11, they're all speaks of because of faith, they did something. Enoch's different. Because of faith, God did something. He took him to be with him. He so pleased him, he just took him. Tomorrow we're having our memorial for just a dear woman, Roylene Walton, who grew up in our church, and you'll probably hear something about that. But I could not help but think of Roylene, just a friend of God who walked with God. And it was almost like, and then God just took her. And just so struck by that. Enoch's faith, he was someone who walked with God. And it's a very important phrase. The key phrase is that he walked with God. John Golden-Gay, who's an incredible Old Testament scholar, he says this: usually people walk about before God, which suggests that God has an eye on them with both solemn and encouraging implications. That's a beautiful thing. Like you're living your life and God has got an eye on you. Enoch, he says, walked about with God, which suggests something more like friendship. There was a rhythm of life that was created as Enoch shows us something. There was a way in which he walked with God. There's a rhythm. Walking with a good friend gives you perspective, gives you wisdom, gives you encouragement, gives you strength in life. And Enoch had this with God. I think it's incredible that twice in the book of Genesis, we see that God is one who walks with his people. Chapter 3 and chapter 5. In the first 5 chapters of the first book of the Bible, it's very clear that God is someone who wants to walk with you through life. And as we learn to walk with him, we learn to set a rhythm, a pace of life. Think about Jesus. Jesus' call to you can really be summed up in the simple words, follow me. Jesus says, follow me. Some other translations might be come under me, come behind me. The idea is come with me where I'm going. Learn from me, take my life on. Learn the rhythm of life from me. And so when we learn to walk with God, he sets the pace for our lives. But second, that it's important to see is that walking with God creates discoveries that increase our faith. There are things that you learn about God as you walk with him that then all of a sudden help your faith grow. We see that he is one who pleased God. And the way that you please God, it says, is that you become someone who earnestly or diligently seeks him. It's this idea that it's present and active. It's to exert considerable effort. He made an effort to walk with God, to understand who God was and to learn about who he was. And as he was, his faith was increasing more and more. He trusted him more and more. And I think he's onto something. As we learn to set a pace to walk with God, we discover more about God. As we discover more about God, our faith increases, our God confidence increases. There are things that we begin to understand about who he is. And we change and we grow. And we see that God rewards those who seek him in this way. Now, one of the things I said in this that maybe maybe is different than what you've heard is that our faith can increase. We discover things about God that allow our faith to grow or to increase. And maybe you've been taught that faith is kind of an all or nothing thing. You either believe or you don't. You're either 100% or you're zero. You're all in or you're all out. And I don't think that's what the Bible teaches. I think the Bible teaches us that our faith is constantly in flux, that we're growing, that there are moments when we believe, and there are moments where we're struggling to believe. We can think about the different ways that we see this. We're in the books of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and Paul, remember, he speaks to this brand new church, this young church, and he commends them for the ways that their faith is growing. He says, we ought always to thank God for you, brothers and sisters, and rightfully so, because your faith is growing more and more. And the love you have for one another is increasing. Notice what's happening. Faith's increasing, love's increasing. More and more as they're seeking God, as they're walking with God, more of this is happening. You can think about this with Jesus. Think about how many times the disciples are walking with Jesus and his response to them is, you have little faith. I was so hoping you guys were gonna get it this time. Next time. Right, or you think about there's a moment where Jesus comes, and there are moments where he lets some of the disciples see things, and you know part of that is as they see something about who he is, then their faith can increase and grow a little bit more. There's a moment where he comes, an amazing moment. He's kind of revealed himself. They call it the Transfiguration. He's kind of revealed his glory to a few of his disciples that come down off the mountain. The rest of the disciples are having trouble. They can't cast an evil spirit out of a boy. The dad begs in mercy to Jesus, if there's anything you can do. Jesus, anything I can do. Anything's possible for the one who believes. And the dad's response is amazing. He says, I do believe, but help my unbelief. Like, I can come this far. I have this much ability, but I don't know if I have enough to get to where you want. And Jesus acknowledges that's enough. And he does the miracle for them. There's great harm we do when we say to people, you either believe or you don't. It's that simple, take it or leave it. We are all gonna have seasons where we are struggling or we're wrestling or there's a way in which we're growing. And we wanna be a community as we walk with God and walk with others where we help people through those times. This needs to be a safe community to struggle, to question, to doubt together. If we don't, what happens is people fake it. Right, you put on this idea that it's all right, or sure, mom, this is my faith. And then when you have a chance, you bail. You get wrecked by guilt, you get wrecked by doubt, or you fake it. And that's not what we wanna be. We wanna be people who love each other enough to walk through the tough questions of faith with each other. I have moments all the time, questions, things that I'm thinking, man, I've never thought of it like this before. And we wrestle through it. Today, 19 people who are being baptized who are expressing faith. Justin made a great observation. As you watch them today, think about your own moment. Think about your baptism. Think about where you were in that time. And for some of you, think about where you've now become. Think about where you are now in faith, how far you've come. I was a junior in high school. We did an evening service doing baptism, and we have a little tank back here. I was so excited that when it was my turn, I just ran down the stairs, baptized myself before I hit the step, went down, does that count? No, kept stand here, we'll do it right this time. But if I think about my faith, it was pretty simple. I was excited, but it was simple. How much I've grown since then. It's grown exponentially. As I think there's something we see in Enoch as you walk with him and you earnestly seek him, you're gonna discover things about God that increase your faith. And the more we learn about God, it's building reason for that God confidence. Well, let me end with this thought and an invitation to you. Ultimately, what I want you to see as we go through these next weeks is that walking with God means walking with others. Walking with God ultimately means walking with others. We see this in the rest of the stories of Hebrews 11. We're gonna see this in the book of Ruth. But I think you know this. As you walk with Jesus in this life, you're gonna find that as you're walking with him, he takes you to people who need you, people who you can be a source or a strength to their growing faith. And I wanna release us this year back into the world. I had a lunch yesterday with a young couple, and one of the things that they were going through some rough stuff, but one of the things that he said to me, he said, I needed to have this conversation. This has helped a lot. And I didn't plan it, I didn't set out for it, but God brought this all together in such a way that he needed to grieve with someone and get some perspective, get some wisdom of how to move forward in faith. Walking with God is gonna mean walking with others. So here's what I wanna invite you to over these next weeks. I wanna invite you to develop 2 rhythms, okay? First is a rhythm of walking with God. Think of, for Beachpoint, we would think of it this way. Think of kind of like 3 strands that are braided together that really, if you miss out on one of them, I think you miss out on some of the strength that can be developed in your life. Number 1 is to have a daily time with God. If your only spiritual moment is what you have an hour on Sunday, you will be anemic, you will be weak. Your faith won't be as strong as it's capable of being. And so we want to teach you how to read the Bible for yourself. We want to encourage you. We want to empower you. We have an app. We have a website. Every day we give you a Bible passage. What we're going to read through is the Gospel of Mark. It's Mark's story of Jesus' life. So what I'm going to invite you to do in the fall is to kind of slowly, prayerfully think about walking with Jesus and watching it, trying to imagine yourself as one of his followers, and you're in the story with him. And just think about it and pray about it and see the way that God wants to play it out in your real life. And develop that rhythm. Second is, I want to encourage you to be here for the next 7 weeks. 7 weeks, we're going to go through this book of Ruth. You can do anything for 7 weeks. And I will simply say this, as a last year's fantasy football champion of my church league here, coming to church every Sunday almost guarantees you victory in your league as well. So if you're gonna stay home, because you've gotta see what is gonna happen, I'm just telling you, good luck. You're on your own. No, but I think it's really important for us. And I know some things are gonna come up. If you miss for whatever reason, watch online, or just not because I want you to hear my voice, but I want you to think about this beautiful love story between the way this God redeems a family, and watch what happens and think about how God wants to walk with you in it and how he wants to change you through it. The last thing is I want to just encourage you to be a part of a group. Our life groups are going to begin next Sunday. You can go to beachpoint.com/life groups and you can we have all kinds of different groups. A women's Bible study on Wednesday. We've got 2 brand new groups that are more like different than kind of the sermon base where we talk about application. But if you want to kind of think through like questions of your faith or the big questions of faith in life, we have 2 brand new groups. You'll see all these options that are there. We have Monday night, we have our Celebrate Recovery ministry. That's incredible. We want you to find your way into community with some other people. One of the cool groups that we have, and it only takes place with a small group of people every year, is something called The Journey. It's a deeper dive. It requires a little more work, but some of you are right there. You're ready for something to push you a little bit harder. And if you are interested in that, I just want to encourage you to email me and say, hey, I'd love to hear more about what this journey is. It's a study about who God is, who you are, and how God wants to work in your life and through your life. And so if you're interested in finding out more about this special group, it's only for a small group of people, just email me, bills@beachpoint.com. In the subject line, just put The Journey. If you send me an email, you don't have to be in the group. Okay, you're just saying, tell me more, okay? don't panic. Here's the last thing, and that is, I want you to develop a rhythm of walking with others. Walk with others as they walk with God. So here's the cool thing we're gonna do in the fall. It's something called 100 tables. You might have saw the little display outside. I wanna encourage you to grab one of these cards that's out there. Here's what we want you to do. We want you to eat together. Okay, we want you to invite people into your home. We want you to have a meal together. It's built around 3 things: eat, share, pray. Host a meal or join a meal, share about life, find a way before, during, or after to pray with each other. We just wanna, we've spent these last years thinking about being isolated from each other. We wanna encourage you to be with each other. Some of you can just organically figure that out. Others of you would maybe like to meet some new people. If you scan the QR code, go to the next slide, Kelly. Here on the screen or on this card, you will actually see there's about 15 people that have offered to host meals, different kinds of food, different things. Maybe you just wanna meet some different people, different ages, things like that. You can check those out. And then go back, Kelly, one more, back to this photo slide. So what you're gonna do is wherever you do, when you have a meal together, one of the things that you have to do is you have to take a selfie and you email it to tables@beachpoint.com. It doesn't have to be with all church people. You can just host a meal for your people in your neighborhood. You can host whatever, but just try to eat, share, and pray. Send it. And our goal is that we're gonna have at least 100 tables during the fall, or between September and October. This is what we wanna do. Check it out. So with this, here's what we're going to do. It's gonna be an awesome fall, and right now we're about to have an awesome celebration.